пассажиры, для открытия двери вашего вагона вам следует после полной остановки поезда нажать на кнопку, обозначенную подсветкой зеленого цвета.
Ukrainian attacks shut down another Russian refinery. The Novokuibyshevsk oil refinery has completely shut down following another Ukrainian drone strike, Reuters reports. According to the agency's sources, fuel production at the facility was halted as early as October 19th. In particular, the CDU-11 primary oil processing unit, with a capacity of 18,900 metric tons per day, approximately 138,500 barrels, has been shut down. Another key unit, CDU-9, was halted earlier on Sunday. The refinery had previously suspended primary processing following a drone attack last month. According to Reuters, the facility may resume operations in early November. In 2024, the Novokuibyshevsk oil refinery processed 5.74 million tons of crude oil, producing 1.10 million tons of gasoline, 1.64 million tons of diesel fuel, and 1.27 million tons of fuel oil. It is worth noting that the Novokuibyshevsk Petrochemical Company is one of the top 5 largest producers of gas processing, petrochemical, and organosynthetic products in Russia and Eastern Europe. It is the only producer in Russia of synthetic ethanol and para-tert butylphenol, a unique product for Russia and the CIS countries. Recently, it was announced that this refinery has been attacked for the 5th time. Militarny previously reported that on the night of June 14, 2025, drones attacked the refinery again, causing a fire on the premises. A Russian soldier describes in detail the deadly conditions on the front line. Small groups are fighting a huge war. An opornik, dugout, can be held by a handful, 2, 3, or 4 people. The line of combat contact has completely changed. Russian blogger, philologist, Svyatoslav Golikov, on Ukraine's dominance in FPV drones. On March 27th, in a commentary to the News.ru information portal, Major General of Aviation Sergei Lipovoy noted that in mass attacks by aerial drone. In 2023, our task was to bring a company into the village on 10 BPM-3s. That was already difficult back then. Now the equipment is stationed tens of kilometers away from the LBS. If in 2023 those very BMP-3s doubled as little tanks, now they are unlikely to reach a position from which they can fire. And not because the tanks are obsolete, but simply because they cannot be systematically protected and covered from the main means of destruction, kamikaze drones. I will describe what the path to the line of combat contact looks like for an ordinary infantryman. It is now a whole march. With all your gear, weighing about 30 kilos, you are dropped 10 to 15 kilometers from the point where you will fight the war. There are directions where the march can reach up to 30 kilometers. There are also places where, under the cover of the forest, you can jump almost several kilometers closer to the LBS. Beyond that, only quad bikes, mud bikes, and various intense electric scooters travel to supply points. The concept of rear now begins 50 kilometers from the LBS. The hardest part is to get there. Roads and communication routes are mined by drones. Homemade mines are stuffed into first aid kits, their casings coated with glue and covered with grass. Pedals are dropped by the dozens on trails and on places where the track is visible. Large magnetic mines. If you don't know what mines look like, you will definitely step on one. Check thematic TG channels. 1, 2. The path is the most dangerous segment. Mavics constantly track movements and are ready to instantly relay coordinates to an FPV crew or some battery. At the LBS itself, in a dugout, it is not as dangerous as on the way there. It is now common practice that guys sit in the hole for a month or two, pull everything off without losses, but get into trouble when leaving. There is no supply. Everything is done on foot. The best you can count on is a daring motorcyclist who is not afraid to jump in and immediately get out. At night, the evil awakens. Huge drones with thermal imagers dropping mortar mines. Didn't find a dugout before sunset. You died. Hence, the main problem arises. Accumulating forces and maintaining them in large numbers at the LBS is now impossible. This applies to both sides. To fix the situation and start winning systematically, regular quad bikes, large supply drones, small evacuation buggies, and fighter drones are needed. Now all of them are off the books, bought independently or obtained through humanitarian channels. Total atomization is happening. Microgroups must be able to do everything. There are no separate sappers, signalers, or others. You have to be able to do everything yourself. First of all, navigate and work with mobile maps. Secondly, work with communications. Thirdly, no sapper skills. Without this knowledge, you will get physically lost, lose contact with those who could help, and step on a cute woolly lump in the no man's land. The gray zone, by the way, is now 2 to 3 kilometers. On this Indian territory, besides abandoned 200s dead, 300s wounded, and mines, there is nothing. All this has a very depressing effect on the fighters. The enemy often runs after taking the first losses during the assault. The quality of their soldiers. You can see everything yourself about their bisification. Even their special units have lost their former vigor. Nevertheless, we run into the fact that we can barely reach them. Politico's version of the recent White House meeting paints a picture of careful diplomacy, cautious political timing, and an evolving balance between American domestic politics and the Ukrainian war effort. According to the report, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived in Washington hoping to secure Tomahawk missiles, but ultimately left without them, a result insiders attribute to poor timing, as global attention remains fixed on the crisis in the Middle East. Advisors sympathetic to Ukraine within the U.S. Republican camp reportedly urged Zelenskyy to postpone the meeting altogether, suggesting that pressing for major new weapons systems now might backfire. The conversation, they argued, needed to take place in a more favorable political atmosphere. Inside the meeting, former President Donald Trump briefly revisited the idea of possible territorial concessions as a pathway to peace. However, sources indicate that Zelenskyy stood firm, and Trump eventually accepted the Ukrainian stance, saying he would seek to end the war along the current line of contact. Contrary to Trump's public statements suggesting that Vladimir Putin wants the conflict to end, American negotiators privately told the Ukrainians that Moscow intends to keep fighting. They described Russia as maintaining a strong military machine, a characterization that underscored Washington's skepticism toward Kremlin signals of peace. Real estate developer and Trump ally Steve Witkoff, present during parts of the discussion, reportedly interrupted to assert that Russia wants to seize all of Donbas. According to a source, the mood in the room shifted as it became apparent that the Americans were probing Ukraine's willingness to compromise on territorial issues. Zelenskyy refused to yield any land still under Ukrainian control, insisting that Russia's failure to occupy these territories should not now be rewarded diplomatically. The meeting closed with Trump acknowledging Zelenskyy's position and repeating his earlier line, "Okay, let's try to finish this along the current lines." A European diplomat who later reviewed accounts of the meeting told Politico that the atmosphere was not as grim as described in other media, hinting that both sides may have found limited common ground despite the absence of a concrete breakthrough. The encounter, while not producing immediate results, suggests that the discussion over Ukraine's future is moving into a new phase, one where timing, tone, and political optics may matter as much as weapons or front lines.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week gets 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.